QPR's winless championship run was extended to 7 matches this afternoon with a 2-1 loss against Watford. That makes it 3 consecutive losses from 3 in 2024, the first time that's happened since 1991. I was sat in the loft, so as usual here is my take on the match. QPR may have been totally inactive in the January transfer window so far, but that doesn't mean that nothing's happening at the club at all. On Monday, we got the news that technical director / head of coaching Chris Ramsey has left the club after 9 years. An announcement that drew heartfelt messages from both coaches and players, but mostly good riddances from many QPR fans. However you see it, his tenure as head of coaching has not exactly produced a great deal of gems, and we must be the only club in football that keeps someone in employment for 8 years after sacking them as manager. That wasn't all though, because on Friday, again out of the blue, it was announced that a new CEO, Christian Nourry, had replaced Lee Hughes, who retires from the role but remains in his recently acquired position as chairman. Nourry joins us from American firm Retexo Intelligence, an analytics and advisory company that uses datasets, research, analytics, and statistical models to enable their clients to drive revenue and lower costs. Now, one such client of Retexo, of course, has been QPR since last summer. Nourry was managing partner of Retexo and has been leading an in-depth review of QPR since summer 2023, in a bid to identify opportunities that could be made on and off of the pitch. He must have been working all day, every day since then, because that will be a bloody long list. According to The Independent, he is of French, German and British descent, and apparently he's just 26 years old. Despite his young age, he's supposedly been working in football for 11 years, alongside being a student of Oxford University. And as far as we can tell from QPR's interview of him on Friday afternoon, as part of his deep dive into the club, he's made 3 key recommendations that have been taken on board so far. The first being the recruitment of Ben Williams as Director of Performance in July 2023. The second being the recommendation to move Ainsworth on. That makes him good in my books already. And the identification and recruitment of Marty Cifuentes in his place. And the third recommendation, it appears, was to appoint a new CEO. Now, whether or not he put himself forward, which seems to be quite a substantial conflict of interest in his role as an advisor to the club, or whether the club thought that they might have uncovered a gem here and made a move for him, we just don't know. I highly doubt the latter. Anyway, many QPR fans have already dismissed Nourry for his young age, with him being the youngest chief executive in English football, but he clearly does arrive to the role with some acumen, with some industry executives supposedly dubbing him the Lionel Messi of the football business world. I don't know whether he'll be any good. He certainly spoke very clearly and sensibly in that opening interview, though we know from Michael Beale that's not always a sign of the real deal. But what I do know is that whatever we've been doing now, it's not been working for the best part of 10 years, and we're desperate for a change in direction and some fresh ideas. Whether the ideas work or not, we will get a change in direction with Nourry, and I'm all for that at this point. The problem for him is that that change of direction is looking increasingly likely to be started from a division lower than we are currently in. He did, after all, confirm in his opening interview with the club that we will not be active in the January transfer window as a result of decisions made in the current 3-year profit and sustainability cycle. Why it's taken until this point for us to be given this clarity, I don't know, but he's already provided more clarity in his opening 13 minutes than Hughes did in 9 years. And with the painful home truth settling that no one is coming in to bolster this squad, we turned our minds to the joys of a 12 PM Sunday kickoff against Watford. Cheers for that, Sky. After a 2-week break from the Championship and our annual FA Cup collapse. Following our opening day first half surrender to Watford, they did struggle to gather pace in the league, with just 2 wins in the Championship until the start of October. But despite heading to Loftus Road winless in 3 matches, time and faith in Valérien Ismaël has been rewarded, with the Hornets having lost just 3 of their last 16 Championship appearances. I did note in my preview video that they haven't actually beaten anyone in the current top 6, instead only tending to beat teams around and below them. But that, of course, unsurprisingly did put QPR right in the firing line. QPR fans and players alike will have already forgotten about last week's capitulation, with 3 home games to come this month against Watford, Millwall and Huddersfield, already feeling like we're in the last chance saloon to turn our season around. And with Rotherham, Sheffield Wednesday and Huddersfield all dropping points on Saturday, those stakes felt considerably heightened before kickoff. Now, I was pleasantly surprised looking at the starting lineup this morning. To me, it felt like we were probably a Steve Cook or Paul Smith away from this being our strongest starting lineup. Chair and Willock back in the team, a first start for Jack Colback since his injury away at Preston on the 1st of December, and a couple of options on our bench. I was also pretty pleased to see that both strikers were starting again, They of course both found the back of the net against Bournemouth, and that's something that I felt that we should carry into the league. On paper, I was assuming this would be a 4-2-3-1 with Chair in that sort of number 10 role, but in reality it was actually Chair out on the wing and Lyndon Dykes of all people that was dropping into the number 10, which we'll chat about a bit more shortly. Now the first plus of the first half came within 33 seconds, because despite Watford having the first chance, we had at least made it further than we had at Vicarage Road without Watford scoring. This was a pretty end-to-end half really. Both teams had more or less a fair share of the ball, though QPR did have the better share of chances with 6 to Watford's 2. As usual though, QPR's goal scoring quality just wasn't quite there. Within the first 5 minutes, Chair showed us what we've been so sorely missing over the last few games: a player to take the game to the Watford defence. He linked up nicely with Powell on the left wing, who sent a looping ball into Armstrong for a free header which he sent over the bar. A great chance so early on that he probably should have done better with. 1 minute later, Sam Field would pick up the first of a series of cheap QPR yellow cards. And 5 minutes after that, it looked like it might be Watford that would open the scoring, with a tidy ball in behind to Mateus Martins, excellently blocked by Jake Clark-Salter at the last opportunity. Despite having the better moments of the opening minutes, it didn't take long before we were inviting pressure on ourselves, with some trademark questionable passing around the back. Jimmy Dunn in particular nearly stitching up Begovic when he played the ball back to him, with 2 Watford attackers closing him down. And despite some good efforts, this was a real theme for me in that opening 45 minutes, and something that really prevented us from doing any real damage to Watford. We didn't work the ball up the pitch quickly enough, and Jimmy Dunn, who seemed to have a lot of the ball at the back, just wasn't distributing the ball. It was a real shame because Willock spent a lot of time in open space out on that right wing, but no one wanted to take a risk and pump the ball over to him. Thankfully, Watford were pretty sloppy themselves, and we did limit them to very few attacking chances in that first half. More attacks would follow from both sides. 20 minutes in, Reggie Cannon would earn a free kick on the edge of the box, which looked suspiciously close to being inside the box. And from my seat in the loft, Elias Chair's following right-footed free kick looked in, but it was too high and it nestled in the net behind the goal rather than inside it. Now back onto Lyndon Dykes. It seems that Marty has finally twigged that this bloke isn't a striker. First lesson learned. But the next one he probably needs to learn is that he's not a number 10 either. So often he was dropping deep and trying to lay off the ball quickly, but he was so stiff and cumbersome in the middle that he was often just getting in the way, and we already have Sam Field for that. When Dykes did rattle off his first shot on 35 minutes, it sailed comfortably over the bar. And if the pairing of him and Armstrong worked well against Bournemouth, it really didn't have the same effect here in this first half. Balls over the top to Armstrong were continually working though, seemingly a recent discovery for this Rangers side, and we looked like we could get real joy there if we exploited this in the right way. And before he would have the best chance of the half, Jack Colback would find himself on a yellow card alongside Kenneth Powell and Sam Field, hacking down a spreader on the halfway line as Watford started to counter-attack in a foul that I was convinced was going to be a red. Anyway, 2 minutes before the first half concluded, Armstrong had the best chance of either team, running in on goal on the right hand side and somehow rattling off a shot with 3 defenders next to him at the tightest of angles, forcing a save from Ben Hamer that dangerously rebounded out into the centre of the box, inches away from being tucked into the net by Elias Chair, but Andrews had other ideas and sliced the ball out of his path. Armstrong's effort somehow was the only shot on target for either side in that first half. So although we had done well to keep Watford quiet and we had had the better share of the chances, we couldn't feel too bad about not being ahead at the break. When the second half began, it looked like Sinclair Armstrong might right those wrongs just 15 seconds in. He showed his strength and claimed a quick ball down the left, cut into the box past his man and was one-on-one with the keeper, a near identical position to the one he scored from against Bournemouth last weekend. But his right-footed shot was too close to Hamer and he turned it out for a corner. I mean, that's the difference, right? You take that chance, you take control of the game, but it's just something we don't do in the league. And 10 minutes later, another golden opportunity would arise for Armstrong. It started with Begovic launching an excellent throw out to Chris Willock, who after claiming the ball looped it to the left to Armstrong after he was double marked. It looked like the chance was squandered with the defender sliding to take the ball off of Armstrong, but it bobbled and suddenly he was one-on-one with the keeper again. But his heavy touch put the ball just close enough to Hamer for it to be scrambled away. I feel conflicted on Armstrong today because he played excellently. He's improving week on week and he was probably my man of the match. He gets into positions that Dykes doesn't, he makes runs in behind, he's strong, he's causing problems for the defenders. He's doing it all right except for the goal. And I've talked before about the sympathy I have for him. QPR's reliance on him as our only other striker next to Dykes has restricted his development. He should be out on loan, plying his trade in the lower leagues and coming back as something closer to the finished article. But these 2 second half one-on-ones with the keeper were golden opportunities, and at least one of those has to be finished off. But that's the reality, I guess, when you're relying on a 20-year-old striker with just 1 league goal to his name to win you games that you hope might keep you in this division. And as the script goes, QPR not taking their chance chances against a frankly unusually lacklustre Watford side was always going to be punished sooner or later. On 59 minutes we'd started to slow a little bit and Watford were building on the ball. Mateus Martins inside our box on the left hand side picked out Jake Livermore, who had strolled to the edge of the box, and with Rangers too slow to shut him down, he was able to set himself up nicely and whip in an absolute worldie. Begovic floundering to save it, but nestling in the bottom right corner of the goal. A cruel but superb goal, and an unsurprising one when you just don't take your chances. I wasn't even that annoyed. There's not really a lot you can do with a hit like that. He could have closed down more, but these goals happen from outside the box sometimes. Don't let your head drop and we can still get something from this. So what happened? Well, our heads started to drop. As we so often see, this team started to look like they'd never played together. Miss-hitting passes, cheaply giving the ball away. But despite this, Jack Colback would soon have a fantastic chance to equalise, meeting a flicked on header from a long throw, but dragging his first time shot considerably wide of the mark. With the position he was in 6 yards out, you have to be scoring that. But of course, he's just another QPR midfielder who can't hit the target. And once again, Watford punished us for missing it, because on 65 minutes, 10 minutes after his first goal, Jake Livermore would find the back of the net once again. Martins had pumped in a low driven cross which was cleared off of the line, and the ball of course would nestle at the feet of Jake Livermore once again, in more or less the exact same position as the first, and he had time again to set that ball nicely up onto his right foot. And with the Watford fans telling him exactly what to do, he levered the ball along the ground through a sea of QPR players and Begovic, once again finding the bottom right. I can forgive that first one, but to do it again 10 minutes later, with no one sticking out a leg, Begovic not even getting down. At this point, I've also got to note that 34-year-old Jake Livermore, who had scored one goal since October 22 before this match, hasn't scored a brace since 2016. Now 2-0 down, Marty looked to the subs bench, taking off Chair and Colback for Dixon Bonner and Paul Smith, and QPR went about trying to get something back from this game. And to be honest, it felt really hard to imagine us getting anything at this stage. The energy had been sucked out of us, just like it was when Cardiff's second goal went in. But surprisingly, Paul Smith was the real game changer here, immediately causing problems down that right hand side, and providing that injection of pace that was much needed at this point in the game. So it was no surprise that it would be him that would force the issue out of nowhere, taking on his man on 77 minutes and releasing a deflected cross to the back post that Dykes would meet and comfortably stroll in. With 15 minutes plus added time to go, and the fresh legs of Lakesh and Dazelle in place of Jake Clark-Salter and Sam Field, suddenly a draw didn't feel out of the realms of possibility. But corners, free kicks and some more excellent crosses from Paul Smith were met with very little intent. Best chance coming from Jimmy Dunn of all people on 92 minutes, when his curled shot through a sea of players in the aftermath of a corner looked certain to square the game up. But Ben Hamer got down to the ball fantastically in a situation that was not totally dissimilar to Livermore's second goal, really showing you the difference between a keeper that can get down to those kind of shots. The whistle blew for full time at 97 minutes, and QPR as usual left the pitch empty-handed. This was in some ways quite a different loss to recent matches. In the last few we've really struggled to create a good volume of chances. That was not the case today, but what we lacked was natural goal scoring ability, something that we knew we didn't have going into the season and has been a constant problem for us. And with no January recruits to solve that problem, it will be the problem that sends us down to League One. This wasn't at all a smash and grab from Watford. They did often look sharper when on the ball, and the reality is they have players, midfielders, strikers that can find the back of the net, even against the run of play. The worrying sign for me is we seem to find so many different ways of losing matches. We're now 2 out of 4 league home matches into January and are yet to pick up a single point. And if you didn't already see that we're rapidly hurtling towards relegation, you must surely see it now. I seriously hope that Mr. Nourry has started to prepare for life in League One, because that is what surely awaits. Millwall up next weekend, who of course were inspired into a 3-game winning streak after beating us on Boxing Day. That was of course until Middlesbrough's 3-1 away win at the Den yesterday. My preview video for that will be up in the midweek, so do check that out. Thank you so much as usual for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please do consider liking and subscribing. And if you have any thoughts yourself, do let me know in the comments below. See you next time. Cheers.